Thank you very much for coming on to TheBoxingBar.com, Robert. Thank you very much, man.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me, my man.
You know, it's been since 2013 that I had you on. I had you on right after, I believe you had got one of the Trainer of the Year awards.
Yeah, 2013, yeah.
After that, we just pretty much talked about your training career, but we didn't talk about your boxing career, or we didn't talk about any of your life in Oxnard, which I'm from, and that's where I was born and raised myself.
Right.
First of all, how are you guys all over there with all that pandemic stuff going on right now?
Well, look, it's been pretty tough, for the last since February, March completely died out. All the fighters have been staying home, and myself, spending time at home with my family, my grandson. I have a 1-year-old grandson, so it's giving me a lot of time to spend it with family and enjoy my grandson. But as a boxing, it has hurt, really bad, with all the young fighters that are still not making the kind of purses where they could survive through months of not competing, and it's hard not only for the fighters but also for trainers. Some trainers that are still not getting big paydays, so they live off small fights or private training. And since all the gyms shut down, well, it affected everybody, man. It affected the whole boxing world.
Absolutely, and gym owners like yourself as well. I mean, you guys have been on shutdown for all this time, and like you said, some people, this is the only way they got to get paid, and it's been put to a halt, unfortunately.
Exactly.
At the moment, are all you guys still? Is anybody still training at least in the gym, keeping at least in shape
Look,
until after all this goes through?
Throughout this last few months, the only one that's been training on and off, not an everyday thing, but on and off, is Jose Ramirez, who was scheduled to defend his title in February, and the fight got canceled because of the virus. And then he already had another date for May 9th, and it also got canceled. So he's been on and off training because they told us, be ready for May 9th. It looks like that's going to happen. Didn't happen. So now he took a week off. He'll be back next week to continue training, because now they're telling us that he might be back in July. So he's been training for 2 training camps already, and this will be his 3rd. Hopefully this time around they do put the fight together, because from what I hear, Top Rank looks like they're gonna start sometime next month in Vegas with fights, like studio fights, no audience, no fans. So it's gonna be kind of different, but we have to deal with it, and the fighters also have to agree. I know Jose doesn't really like the idea of fighting with no fans, but if this is the only way we're going to be able to get the fights, then we're going to have to deal with it.
How does that affect a fighter? Does it affect their income, or is it just a matter of just the crowd psychologically not being there for?
Well, look, I think the most likely to affect is when having no crowd. A lot of fighters, they obviously feel better when somebody's cheering you on, and Jose is the he's the type of fighter that's been fighting at his hometown a lot, and he gets a lot of support. From 15,000 people screaming his name out, and out of a sudden to do a title defense with no fans, I think that's the only thing that would affect him the most. The purses, well, if you're already a world champion, you're already getting good purses. So if for some reason they have to cut down your purse with a couple 100,000, well, it does suck, and they will, more likely the fighter won't like it, but it's something that he'll deal with. Okay, let's I'm gonna have to take a little cut, because there's not gonna be no gate entry. So promoters make a lot of money on the entrance also, and a lot of promoters have to pay up a percentage of the gate for the fighter, because TV only gives a certain amount, and sometimes the fighters make more than what TV gives the promoter. So they have to make it up on the gate and on sponsors and things like that. So I understand that some fighters might have to take a little bit of a cut from their purses, but there's nothing we could do. It's not like it's going to be just our fighter. It's going to be the whole boxing world taking cuts on purses. So we have to deal with it.
I'm very glad that you brought up Jose because I've been following him since right after the 2012 Olympics, and I moved from Oxnard. I moved to the Central Valley up in Merced County, which is about an hour north of Fresno. So I've been
Uh-huh.
watching him for years, man. And I
Okay.
was so happy when I heard that he hooked up with you because I was like, all right, my guy from up here and with my guy from down there. So that's awesome to hear. You were raised in Oxnard, but were you
Yes.
actually born there?
I wasn't born in Oxnard. I was born in San Pedro, California, and my parents moved to Oxnard when I was like 2 years old. So I grew up in Oxnard, and for the last, well, going on 6 years already. This summer, I live in Riverside now.
And that all has to do because of work. Obviously, you were having to travel so much, because of Mikey and all that stuff. And I'm sure you don't miss 2 hours each way on the road.
Yeah, you know what? The first year I did it for 1 year, and I was driving back and forth, and I had my good stable. Mostly those well, we say Russians, but a lot of them were from different countries in the
Right.
Eastern European, and I was happy. Those guys are very dedicated,
Hmm.
loyal, and respectful and everything. But after a year, I just wasn't able to do it anymore. And I told all the guys, and as you know, most of them are some already won titles and uh, and are doing really good in their careers. But I just couldn't do it. I decided to look for a spot over here in Riverside, found me a good location, and from there, I've been focused on my gym here in Riverside, and since then, I love Oxnard, and I still go there a lot. I try to go there as often as I can. I'll actually be over there this coming Wednesday because it's just I like I still have a lot of friends and good people around. So I go there often, but things have gone so well over here, man. Training camp is great. My fighters are all in training camp training. They're all dedicated, and we got the connections with so many promoters. I got fighters with Eddie Hearn, with Top Rank, Golden Boy, some fighters that still fight for Al Heyman. So we're blessed, fortunate to have that those doors open with every top promoter in the business.
I'm very proud of you for that reason. There's trainers that sometimes we'll see for a while with the fighter, but then that fighter goes down and you never see them again for a while or whatever. But it's consistent. You've been there since you were there. And you haven't stopped, and that's a great thing. You've either just been blessed, like you said, with some great fighters coming your way, or for whatever reason, you've just been blessed with that, and it's a great thing
Well,
to know from you.
I think one thing that the fighters, once they get there and they see the way our campus is run, they fall in love with it. Since when we were in Oxnard, when Chino Maidana came over, Chino wanted to retire already. His manager called me and said, "Look, Robert, this kid wants to retire, but I still think he's got some left in boxing, and we want to try it out with you." He didn't want to come. When I picked him up from the airport, he didn't even speak a word until a couple of days later. He wasn't happy to be there, but with all the people around him and all the boxers supporting and helping each other out, he fell in love with it, and he did better than ever. His career made a complete change, and that's the same thing over here in Riverside. All the kids, they all support each other. They live in training camp. They all live together. That's one thing that I've been able to do here in Riverside that I wasn't able to do in Oxnard. There's no big properties in Oxnard where I could have my gym and the house in the same property, so that way they could train, run, eat, sleep, everything together. And so they become friends, they become close to each other. So right here, I'm able to do that, and all the fighters, they help each other whenever one needs help in sparring. They support each other. They go to each other's fights, even if it's a top rank show, and my fighter is fighting for Golden Boy, and they all get along. They're all teammates, and that's one thing that really motivates the fighters and gives them that extra push to try even harder.
Do you also have that one gym in San Antonio as well? Is that also yours?
Yes, yes, that gym. We have the gym in San Antonio, and that's mostly the reason I started that gym was only for because I have like four fighters from San Antonio,
Mm.
so I felt that way when they're back home, because the fighters should never stop training. That's their life, that's their career, especially when they're young. They know they're fighting often, so after each fight, the kids take a couple weeks off. So I wanted them to be back home and still get still go to the gym, continue going to the gym. So that's the reason we have the gym over there. But there's a big amateur program there that's also being run, and Hector Tanahara's dad is the one running it, and he's having fun, he's liking it. We also have one in Central California by the Fresno area, where it's like 40 minutes from Fresno. It's into like a small little town. I can't even think of the town right now.
I
But
bet
it's
you
a
I
small
know it.
town.
I bet you I
But
know it because I lived in that area for a while.
well, yeah, but I can't even think about it right now. But yeah, the once I know, I'll text you the
Yeah.
name of the town. But yeah, it's there, and we have a lot of kids that go there. That's the reason. Just to keep kids off the streets. Over there in Oxnard, my boy Jody and Brandon, they started a gym, and I'm in touch with them almost every day, especially with Brandon. About the gym and kids and everything. So we try to just try to keep something open so the kids have somewhere to go after school or during the summer they're not out in the streets hanging out. Oxnard, and not only Oxnard, everywhere. San
Everywhere, yeah.
Antonio, Central California. There's a lot of drugs and gangs involved. So I think keeping the kids in the gym 2 or 3 hours a day, that's already a win-win situation.
Oh, that's awesome to hear, man. You give back to your community, and back to like how you got to be that way. You were raised in the commercial area. I think I remember talking to
Yeah.
Mikey years back, and he said you guys grew up in the commercial area. What was it like growing up there in that area? Back in that time.
Bro, I think that was probably the best years of our lives, man, because being a kid and growing up in a trailer park on 1301 commercial, when where everybody, all the kids growing up there are your friends, all the parents know each other. So we would get home from school, grab something to eat, and then we're out in the street, and but the street is right there, in the trailer park. There's over 100 trailers there, and all the kids know each other. So we would be out there till 8, 9, 10 p.m. Parents wouldn't worry about where the kids were, because they know every trailer knows which house every kid belongs to. So whenever it was getting too late, everybody would say, "Okay, guys, start going home." So it was safe. Back when I was growing up, I think that was probably the best time of my life. Growing up, riding bikes, playing tag, playing marbles. It was just different games every 2 3 months. We would switch, and throughout the year we had something to do. It was growing up. I think that was the best. That was the best part of my life, man. Growing up in Commercial Avenue.
Yeah, and seen from when your date of birth is, I think we're only 2 weeks apart. I was born in February of '75.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I'm January 29th, so
yeah. So I was born a couple days before Valentine's Day. What were you
so you're
like?
Aquario too.
Aquario.
Yeah.
But what were you like as a kid growing up? Were you quiet? Were you shy? Were you pretty crazy?
Well,
What were you
look,
like?
obviously with schools, one thing that we always went to school, but once we get home from school, we would have a couple hours before we had to go to the gym, because that's one thing my dad was always very very strict with me. I had to go to the gym every day, and that's one thing that I've also advised a lot of parents, not to force their kids to go to the gym if they don't want to. One day they want to stay home and play around, let them be kids. And that's one thing I never got, and I don't blame my dad for that. He did a great job. I became a champion and everything. So I'm very happy for my dad raising me like that. But I do feel that we missed out on sometimes there was days where I just didn't want to go, or maybe I wanted to do something else, stay home and play with the friends, but it was gym time. So I think going to the gym and then getting home like at 7 or 8 p.m. took a lot out of me to be out doing the wrong things. I never grew up doing any bad things, and like I'm telling you, right then in trailer parks, now it's a different story. But when I grew up, all my friends that grew up there with me, all were in the same thing, just playing games. That's all we wanted to do, just have fun, play. Nothing like right now. Right now all the young teenagers already thinking about partying and drinking and getting high and all that. It just made a big, it's changed so much in the last 20 years, I would say. But us growing up, it was just fun, man. And I still talk to a lot of my friends from, that also grew up there. We're still in touch with them. We still, some of them are, we're compadres and stuff like that. So that's something, we never really got in trouble or anything like that. Boxing pretty much kept us out of trouble.
I had trainer, an old trainer from back in the La Colonia days, Martin Noriega, on years
Yep.
ago, and I
Yep.
remember him telling me that he remembers when you were a kid, they used to box at the placita or something, that they
Right.
put up a stage or something for like kids to box. Do you remember that?
Every year they had the, I don't know if it was the Cinco de Mayo or September celebrations, but it was a big celebration in right there in Oxnard at Placita, and they always brought USA Boxing to Oxnard, and that festival. I don't remember which festival it was, but it was a big one.
Mm.
And La Colonia Boxing Club, Martin always put up a show, and always had fights there. A lot of my friends from the trailer park from Colonia right there in the gym. They always fight. I had my first fight when I was a kid. I was only 5 years old when I had my first amateur fight. It was even before USA Boxing started, doing the licensing books for every amateur fighter. Before nobody had a license book. We would just show up to an amateur show. The trainer weighs us in, and there's another kid that weighs the same age. All right, there's a fight right there. And I was 5 years old when I had my first amateur fight, and it was there in Oxnard at one of those festivals.
Wow. And like you're saying, you brought up that you were 5 years old. Do you even remember when the first time that you fought was, or do you remember the first time you put on gloves, or do you remember that?
You know, I,
Since it
I
was
I don't remember exactly. I would be lying because I was 5 years old. So we're talking 40 years ago. So it's not like I have a
right,
perfect memory of
like a
everything. But
detailed memory. Yeah.
no, not at all. But look, from newspaper clips that my mom still has, my amateur trophies. I had like 75 amateur fights, and I only have one trophy, and that's the one I won in 1980. My first amateur fight. That's the only trophy that I keep. So that's why I keep that memory of that fight. And then the other reason why I remember is because I remember who I fought. I fought another kid from Oxnard. At that time, I wasn't training in La Colonia Boxing Club. I was training at home with my dad. So when we go to that show, there's a kid that was training in Colonia at that time, and his name is Mauro Casares. His older brother Jesse, rest in peace, actually just passed away not too long ago. He was a really good boxer, and his little brother was also fighting, and we weighed the same, had about same age, and we fought. We fought an amateur fight. We were both like around 5 years old.
And how boxing or why boxing? Was it your dad? Was it your brother that boxed? That was older than you. Was it? You
Look,
know.
it was my dad. From what I also remember is my dad used to take us to public workouts when somebody like Roberto Duran was gonna fight somewhere in LA. He would take us to the workouts. Pipino Cuevas. I remember my dad took us to see Chavez a lot, a few times training in LA. So he would drive. My dad just loved the sport, and my dad tells us that when he was 15, my dad was born in Michoacan, but when he was 15, he had to move to Guadalajara, to the big city to find work, and help out his parents because he grew up in a ranch and with no money. So he moved to Guadalajara where he had to work, and he tells us that he found a boxing gym. It was run by a priest. From a Catholic church, so he said that the priest started organizing amateur fights, and my dad started competing for that priest to raise money for church. And he says he just fell in love with the sport. And well, my older brother, his first son born, right away the first thing he thought is I'm gonna make him a boxer. And then he tells us a story that when I was born, also same thing. He grabbed my hand and promised my mom that that boy was going to be a world champion one day. So, it was just my dad pretty much making us do it. And there was a lot of times when I didn't want to be a boxer, but it was something that I had no say. It was just my dad's decision to make us boxers. All my sisters know how to fight. My dad used to train us all in the trailer parks. All my sisters and my older brother. Mikey wasn't born yet, but yeah, I do remember that kind of stuff. And all the kids in the neighborhood, they all learned how to box because my dad would train all of us.
And we always hear about the legendary La Colonia gym from back in the day. And, of course, it wouldn't have been that huge if there wasn't a guy named Robert Garcia that went through there. What do you remember about going into that gym for the first time?
Once I started going there, I was already a little older. I think I started going there like at 8 years old, and with I remember Rolando Reyes, Saul Perez, Moises Perez, Danny Perez, and watching my older brother with Jessica Casares and some of those Lupe Aquino would be there often too. So we grew up idolizing, the professional fighters like Lupe Aquino, my brother who was pro at that time also. It was fun, man. And Martin would take us every weekend to shows in LA. So we were actually looking forward to every weekend driving to LA because we knew for sure he was going to stop at this pizza place in LA, pretty popular pizza place. Man, can't even think of the name right now, but it's a pretty popular pizza place, and where they sell chicken and pizza. So so we were every weekend we were looking forward to going to LA, not because we were gonna fight, but because we were gonna go have some pizza. And growing up, with all the kids right there from Colonia, from around the Colonia area, it was just fun, man. It was just something we enjoyed. We did it for fun. And obviously, then came Fernando Vargas, who became an Olympian. So all that, obviously, that's history from there. But growing up and not even thinking of one day winning a world title, because we had no idea about the Olympics or world title or something like that. It was just fun. We would just compete because we enjoyed it, and we were looking forward to having that pizza.
I remember you being just a terrific amateur, having a great amateur career. And a lot of people, you were a hopeful for the Olympics of the '92 Olympics. As far as I remember, how far did you actually get in the trials and all that stuff?
You know what? I made it to the trials, and I didn't get to fight Julian Wheeler, who is the one that made the Olympics. I lost before making it to that level. I lost to a kid from Sacramento, Guillermo Jorin, who actually became a champion too. He was a really good fighter. He beat me by decision, and then he lost to Julian Wheeler, who made the Olympics. So I made it to the through the nationals and all that. We did a lot of international tournaments. I did some tournaments, USA versus Germany with Oscar De La Hoya, Shane Mosley. I was 125, Oscar was 132, and Shane Mosley was 139. So we did a lot of training camps in Colorado Springs, getting ready for international fights and national tournaments and everything. But yeah, in '92 it was Julian Wheeler who made the Olympics in my weight division.
I remember Oscar came for some kind of fundraiser or something. He came to Oxnard for something like that. Was it, for this, like the Olympic thing, or was it after, like, once you became pro? I don't remember.
When he came to Oxnard, it was when he won the gold medal. After the gold medal, at that time we had a guy representing the gym and the program. His name was Manuel Herrera, and he had been in touch with Oscar. So I think Oscar had promised him that if he would was to win a gold medal, that he would come to Oxnard, and Oscar kept his promise. I remember, yeah, he came to Oxnard. It was a big deal because it was just right off his Olympic gold medal win in Barcelona.
That's right. That's right. You went to Channel Islands High School, right?
I graduated Channel Islands High School. Yes,
Oh,
1993.
93. But
Yes.
you became pro after your junior year, like in the summer, right? Like in the
Yes,
summertime.
it was July 15th of, yeah, after my junior. So during the summer when I went back to school as a senior, I already had a professional fight. Then before the end of the year, I had two more fights in Japan. So I was 3-0 going into January of what was 93. I turned
93.
pro in 92. Yeah. So as a senior, I was fighting. Then I had two fights early in the year at the the Great Western Forum. I had two fights at the Forum. Then after that, that's when I signed with Top Rank and Oscar De La Hoya, his team, same management. So I signed a manager contract with Oscar De La Hoya and his team, promotional contract with Bob Arum. So as a senior, I think I went 5-0 or 6-0 as a senior during my senior year. So because of boxing, I didn't get to go to my prom or grad night or anything like that because I was already a professional fighter. So my dad would have never allowed me to to stay up late and not wake up in the morning to go run.
When you showed up to Japan for your pro debut, what was that pro debut like being there in Japan, different country, making your pro debut, you're a kid, 17 years old, and, being far from home. What was it like that first night, your first pro debut?
See, it wasn't that bad of a deal because when I went over there, I went with Gennaro Hernandez, Chicanito Hernandez, rest in peace, Chicanito Hernandez. He was a really good friend of mine, and I was his sparring partner. When he became champion, I was 16, and the fight was in France. I uh, I went to France. They took me to France. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks before the fight, and I was his main sparring partner. So once I was there, his promoter at that time, Mr. Honda from Taken Promotions, he asked Gennaro's brother Rudy, who's this kid sparring Gennaro? He looks too young. So Rudy told me, look, he's only 16, but he's a good prospect. He's actually an Olympic hopeful. So then once I turned 17, Gennaro was going to do his first title defense in Japan, and I had already lost in the trials. So I was already thinking, nah, I don't want to wait another 4 years for the Olympics. So if there's a chance, I'll turn pro. But I couldn't because I was 17, and here in at least in California and most of the United States, you have to be 18. So I never thought about turning pro at 17. But when Gennaro and his team took me to Japan to help him spar again for his first title defense. They told me, hey, you know what, you could turn pro at 17 in Japan. I'm like, are you sure? Well, then let's do it, and that's how it happened. It wasn't something like right now. Nowadays these kids turning pro. They go and get a big contract from a promoter, big signing bonus. Something. It wasn't. It was nothing like that back then. It was more. I didn't even sign with Mr. Honda. He was just helping me out, get me those fights because of Gennaro Hernandez. So that's how my first three fights happened. Nobody in my family went to those fights, but it was being there with Rudy Hernandez and his dad and Chicanito Hernandez. It was like family because we became really good friends. Since I was like 15, 16, sparring with them in LA. So I felt comfortable, going to Japan wasn't that big of a deal because, we don't really get to do much when we go to another country. It's you're in the hotel, you're in a diet because you have to make weight, you have to train to fight. And after the fight, most likely the next day in the morning, you're flying back home. So it's not like it's something, oh, I'm gonna visit a great country. And I remember it was a beautiful, clean country, but don't really get the time to enjoy much.
Man, and I second that. Gennaro was a great guy. Rudy's one of my pals. He actually let me stay
Yep.
at his house a few years ago after a fight. He has Gennaro's belt there in his living room, and
Yeah,
uh,
his whole family, man. They're all great people, man. Rudy, he'll send me messages here and there. How you been? What they're great people. And every time I see him, my son loves talking to Rudy because Rudy has a lot of knowledge for in boxing, man. And
he does. He does.
my son listens to Rudy. My son says, man, you know how much I enjoy talking to Rudy because he's not gonna bullshit you, man. Rudy's not gonna bullshit you. He's gonna tell you the truth, and if you like it, good. If not, then go fuck yourself. That's what he'll say. But he's real, man. He's real, and my son enjoys talking to him. And I love Rudy. He's a great dude.
Great dude. High school must have been something else for you. Being in high school, being a pro fighter in your senior year. Did people hate on you for that? Did people try to want to fight you because they wanted to make a name for themselves? What was high school like for you?
You know what? Not at all. There was maybe one time where I got into a fight, but I don't think it had anything to do with boxing or anything. Because people kids trying to pick on me or anything like that. None of that. I actually got a lot of support. When I fought at the forum and I was still a senior, I had, I don't even know how many, but there was quite a few teachers from Chanones High School that went to see me fight those fights I had at the forum. Everybody was excited. They all supported me, and I got nothing but love from all the teachers. Most of the students probably didn't even know, because I wasn't that type of fighter or person that wanted everybody to know that I was already a professional athlete, or flashing clothes, money, jewelry, nothing like that. I was probably more maybe embarrassed of people knowing that I was a boxer. But those that did knew that I was a boxer, they would support me. A lot of my friends would go to the fights also, and a lot of teachers did go to my fights when I fight at the forum.
I know you brought up prom and how you couldn't go to that because of your boxing and all that. Was it hard to keep that boxing discipline? Because you can't eat all the good food that you want to eat because, you have to come in early or go to the gym or whatever. You couldn't hang out with friends. Was it pretty hard? Was it pretty hard for that reason to
It was
to
hard.
discipline yourself?
Yeah, no, it was hard, and that's why, when I have young kids that are still in school, I tell the parents, look, let them be kids, let them enjoy, because I don't want them to go. Like I'm telling you, I'm not blaming nobody, or I'm not trying to say that I didn't have fun years in high school or anything like that, but I did miss out on a lot because of boxing. So I know that by the time I was 26, I was sick and tired of the sport. I didn't want anything to do with the sport, and I think a lot had to do with all the being my teenage years, being having to diet, having to wake up at 5 in the morning to go run, and not being able to do stuff like high school stuff and other sports or anything like that. So I think I did kind of hated boxing at one point. That's why at 26, I just said, nah, I'm tired of it. I don't ever want to do it again because of all the sacrifices. It is a very difficult sport, and that's why very few are the ones that make it. From all the years in Oxnard, since we were 5 and 6 years old until now, they're still all those kids that grew up. They all had they were all talented. There were some that were very talented kids that were winning national titles. I never won a national title in the amateurs. I never became a national champion, and I was in every single tournament, but never became a national tournament. And there was so many other kids that were winning nationals and everything. And Fernando and myself were the only ones that became champions, and I think it was more because my dad was always pushing us, always forcing us to do it. Which, like I'm telling you, I thank him and for teaching me what he taught me, but he was strict. He was really hard on us.
After your first three fights and your first fights here in the United States was at the Great Western Forum. Every time I think of the Forum, I miss those days. That's when I first started really watching boxing, and that's where guys like Barrera and Chiquita Gonzalez
Yep.
and Carlos Famoso Hernandez and, like you said, Chicanito and all
Yep.
those guys, man, they came out of there. What was it like, that atmosphere? I know I went to a few live events there, but what
You
was it
know,
like for you as an
look,
actual fighter?
being there and hearing from all the big legends fighting at the forum, from Chavez to Chicanito Hernandez and Barrera. I actually fought on there at the forum. If I'm not mistaken, I think at one of the cards, Barrera was the main event. So there were the Monday night fights at the forum. I remember that
That's right.
prime time Monday night fights. It was just a great experience, man. And people would go watch the fights since fight number one. Nowadays, if you see,
Yeah.
it's mostly business and who's
Hmm.
making the most money. Back then, nobody even cared how much money they were making.
Yeah.
Uh, Nobody would even put it on public. Right now, that's the first thing everybody's. How much is he getting paid? Oh, look at that! Oh shit! Canelo's making so much money. Before that, even though fighters would get contracts, HBO contracts from, nobody would even talk about how much money they were making. People were not interested in how much money they were making. People were interested in watching a good ass fight. Now boxing became a business. Boxing, people go watch the main event only. If you go to a boxing show in Vegas, nobody's in their seat until the main event starts, and that
That's
kind of
true.
sucks. It kind of sucks that,
That's
that that's
true.
that's what boxing turned out to be, a
Hmm.
business. Now doing the McGregor versus Mayweather. They made a lot of money. They generated hundreds of millions of dollars. which I cannot deny that they're smart and they did whatever it takes to make their money. But that's a fight that shouldn't even been sanctioned by the Nevada
That's
Commission.
true.
Honestly,
Yeah.
look, the best fighter in the world in the last 30 years, maybe some people say in history, the best fighter in the world fighting a pro debuter is just insane to even sanction that. But
Yeah.
it's a business, so
Yeah.
the commission had to sanction it. I had a kid from Philadelphia, Joseph Adorno, turning pro at 17, and that's Nevada allows fighters to turn pro at 17. So I signed him with Top Rank, and we wanted him to make his pro debut in Nevada because he was 17. It was going to be on a big card. I don't remember who the main event was, but it was a big card. So our plan was to turn him pro in Nevada, and Nevada never approved of any opponents. They wanted us to match him up against a solid opponent, and we would tell the inspectors, the commissioners, this kid's only 17. He's turning pro. Why can't we pick an opponent where he's going to go out there and look good? And they never allowed us. They say, oh, but he has a great amateur background. Yeah, but he's a kid. He's only 17, and they did not allow me to fight him in Vegas. They
Wow.
wanted him to fight somebody real tough, but then couple years later, they sanctioned Mayweather versus McGregor. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So that's the business boxing has turned into. Right now we see videos of Mike Tyson and Holyfield training, and everybody's excited
Yeah.
about watching them fight,
That's
right?
true. That's true.
Us, you, me, we know boxing.
Yeah.
We know that those guys won't last 3 rounds in a real fight anymore because they're 53, 54. They just won't be able to hang in there with the young fighters. But everybody's excited. Everybody wants to watch them fight, and if they do come back, people are gonna tune in to see them fight.
Because of their names, they're talking about them. If they weren't named Tyson or Holyfield, they wouldn't even let them, train at a gym.
Exactly, they wouldn't even allow them. Exactly, but
That's
Nevada will
crazy.
give them, but they will give them a license to fight.
That is crazy.
Because it's all business. See, boxing turned into a business. Back
Yeah.
then, nobody cared about how much they're making or what my contract's gonna look like. We became champions, and we didn't give a fuck if our contract didn't have those extra zeros. We weren't fighting for big paydays, and it's just reality. Right now, it's just a big business, and I'm part of it too because I manage and train a lot of fighters. So I'm part of it too. I'm out there trying to get my fighters as much as I can. Why? Because I get paid from there. So I'm part of that business also. It's not like I'm trying to change things around. No, I would, I want I want them to add more zeros to it, but it did turn into a business.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. A few fights after the fights at the Forum, you fought at different places like Las Vegas and Oxnard and stuff like that. I know every time I talk, I love talking to the old school veteran, type fighters or whatnot, and they're always talking about the Olympic Auditorium. You fought there a lot of times. What was it like fighting there at the Olympic Auditorium?
Oh, just like fighting at the Forum, then coming back to LA to the Grand Olympic Auditorium when they did the grand opening of the auditorium.
Hmm.
It was just unbelievable. With I remember fighting on a card where Johnny Tapia and Danny Romero didn't fight each other, but they were fighting in the same card, and I was on the undercard. Or when I actually headlined a Telemundo show, I beat I think it was Frankie Avelar from I
Oh
believe
yeah,
so, yeah, from Vegas.
yeah.
They're at the Grand Olympic. It was, man, that place wasn't that big, but every seat was good. Every seat was really good. And back to Chavez and all those legends fighting there, headlining, and just being part of that is unbelievable.
And even Fernando fought a lot of years after
Fernando,
that,
yep,
down
yeah,
the
he
line.
he also fought there too, yeah.
Did you fight on the same card as when Oscar fought? Was it Brito? Brito,
No,
Jimmy Brito?
I fought 1 week before because Oscar was the official grand opening
That's
of the
right.
Olympic
Okay, that's
Auditorium
what I'm thinking.
against
Okay.
Brito. But Top Rank had a show a week before where I headlined that show, but they didn't announce it as the grand opening because they wanted to wait for the big show, which was Oscar.
And, down the line after fighting a lot of guys, you finally get to fight somebody that was well known, which is Derek Gardner. What do you remember about that fight with Derek Gardner in Las Vegas?
Man, it was a difficult fight, awkward fight. That guy was tall and
Yeah.
and awkward, man. He gave me a tough fight. It was just hard, awkward. I just had a hard time. I got the decision, but it wasn't one of those fights that make you feel proud and happy. It was just one of those fights that that man, I know I didn't look too good. I know it wasn't that good. I could have done better. I should have done this. I should have done that. It was just one of those styles that it was difficult and awkward and lucky for me, I got the win and moved on to better things. But it wasn't a pretty fight where I. That's probably one of the fights that I try to not mention whenever I talk about my fights, and you brought it up. So
Sorry about that. I just saw his name, and then I kind of remembered
yeah,
thinking, I remember seeing a Roy Jones come out.
yeah. Roy Jones was with him.
And
He
he
was
came
under the
out.
same team.
Yeah, he came out. I think like right when the decision was being read. I think he fought or something on that night, and then
Yeah,
right
he fought
after
that
the
night.
decision was read, he like made a sign like he was pissed that it didn't go to his boy. Because I
Yeah, he
remember,
was gonna fight that night too. Yeah,
yeah, I remember Gainer was his pal. That's why I kind of
right.
remembered that. And down the line, you fight a guy that you brought up that was around back in your amateur days, Julian Wheeler. What do you remember about that fight with Julian Wheeler?
That was for the NABF title, and
Right.
that was my first big step to the rankings and all that. So I prepared very well. At that time I was still training with Oscar de la Hoya and his training camp in Big Bear. So we trained hard. I prepared myself very well. I knew the importance of the fight. No, plus he was the Olympian that went at my division. I didn't lose to him, but he's the one that made it to the Olympics at the same weight division that I wanted to go, and didn't make it, and he's the one that made it. So it wasn't like I was mad at him or anything, but I knew I had to take that win, and it was another one that wasn't I think I won a unanimous decision. There was no doubt that I won, but it wasn't easy. He was also very talented, very fast. And he had a lot of speed, so it made it a little difficult. But I did pull off a decision, and from there, becoming the NAB champion, I got into the rankings on all three organizations. There was a time where I was ranked number one in the IBF and ranked number one in the WBC. The IBF champion was Arturo Gatti, and the WBC champion was Chicanito Hernandez. But me and Chicanito Hernandez, going through all the camps and fights that we had in the same cards, and him being like my role model, my mentor, we always made a pact between each other that we would never fight each other, even though we were in the same weight division. Me and him made a pact that we would never fight each other.
Really?
So yeah, so I was ranked number one in the WBC to challenge him, but I didn't even look into that. I went after the IBF, it was Arturo Gatti was very, very dangerous, powerful guy. But lucky me, he vacated the title and moved up in weight. So he made it a lot easier for me to fight for the vacant title. And that's when I fought Harold Warren and became a champion.
At what point did you hook up with Don King?
When my contract ended with Top Rank, they were ready to negotiate and everything, but at that time I was still under the Golden Boy team, but they wanted to replace my dad with, at that time, Oscar's trainer, Robert Alcazar. So they wanted to replace my dad. They were telling me that my dad couldn't be in my corner anymore, and that those were orders from Bob Arum, which I really doubt. But they did tell us that that's what Bob Arum ordered, that I had to train with Robert Alcazar, and my dad could only go to my fights just to see my fights, but couldn't be in the corner. So I didn't allow that, and that's the reason I left, and that's when I got an offer from Don King. But I only had two fights for Don King. Don King, he he could promise you 4 or 5 fights a year, but he's only going to give you one. He's only going to give you. He's not going to give you the fights that he promises you. So he fought me. I think it was just twice that I fought under Don King, and then I just walked away because there was obviously no contract because he never gave me the fights that he should have given me.
Yeah, I heard actually the same thing from Rosendo Alvarez. I talked to him a few weeks back, and he was telling me the same thing. He was promised all this stuff, but it never happened. And during that time, the fighter's getting old. You know what I mean? So
The fighters need to be active. And
yeah.
look, and right now, nowadays, we see the same thing with fighters that fight for PBC.
Hmm.
They fight once a year. They're lucky if they get two fights a year.
Hmm.
But one thing is, they do get paid well. So they keep them happy with huge paydays. Fights that they with another promoter they'll have to have 3 fights in order to make that kind of money. So the fighters are happy. They fight once a year. They don't get a lot of beatings. They don't take a lot of punishment. They don't have to go through 3 different training camps because sparring also takes a lot out of you. So most of those fighters are happy because they do get paid well. And Duncan was kind of similar, same way, where he would only fight them once a year, but the purses were probably a little bit better than any other promoter. So same thing right now with the PBC fighters. The purses are really good, but they only fight once. They're lucky if they fight twice. And man, when before they could have done 5, 6 fights a year.
So having said that, if you had a fighter that could fight 2 times for the amount of fighting 3 times, would you rather keep your fighter active and fight the 3 times, or would you fight 2 times and get the same amount of money?
You know what? I'd rather keep my fighters active,
That's smart.
because if you have a fighter that fights once or twice a year and only prepares for 3 months before the fight, there's no way he's gonna be in top shape. Taking 4, 5, 6 months off and then coming back to fight and get ready in 2 or 3 months, it's almost impossible. Most of them do it, but they're not staying active. And most of the fighters, they like to stay home. They don't they go to the gym only when they know they're fighting. So I would rather have them stay in the gym and fight often.
That's true. And we're talking about your dad right now. You had brought him up about going to Don King because they wanted to switch your trainer. What do you think of your dad as a trainer? Was he there's some dad and some partners that don't turn out to be good, like Roy Jones that we mentioned earlier. But then there's some that they stay with their dad for the whole time. What did you think of your dad as being your trainer?
Well, look, I think my dad, now that, from what I've learned from him and from him coming to the gym, still coming to the gym and giving us advice and giving some of my fighters advice, I listen to him. And now, I remember my dad sitting down by himself with a VHS and watching fights, studying the sport, reading books. I remember he had books from Cuba, if I'm not mistaken. He would order books, boxing books from Cuba, and he would read them to learn the sport. He never fought professionally or anything, so he did a lot of watching videos and reading books from I'm pretty sure they were like from Cuba boxing. So he would read a lot, and if he liked something from a trainer, he would go up to the trainer and ask him questions. I remember Oscar de la Hoya hiring Cholain Rivero from Yucatan when I believe it was when he fought Chavez the first time. And Cholain Rivero was there in camp, and my dad was there too. And every day, my dad would sit with Mr. Rivero in his in his room, and that man would give my dad so much advice and showed him so much. So my dad was more like a student where he would study the sport and he would bring it to the gym to us. And that's why my dad has a lot of knowledge in boxing. My dad didn't go to school, didn't have an education or anything like that, but when it comes to boxing, he's pretty much always right. He goes to the gym, he tells a fighter something, and if the fighter does it, then he's gonna get better. But if he doesn't, then it's up to him.
Yeah, he absorbed all that information.
Yes, he did.
Going into 1998, everybody in Oxnard, I remember, was saying, "Hey, when is Robert going to get his title shot? He's undefeated, blah, blah, blah." You get the news, you're going to get the title shot in March. What do you remember about getting that news that you were finally going to get your shot at the world title?
Well, look, it's what every fighter growing up dreams about. I never dreamed about the Olympics. Going to the trials was a good experience, but I never really had any hopes of one day becoming an Olympian or winning a medal. Every young fighter growing up is, I want to become champion one day. So getting that opportunity, not only for me but for my dad, where he started boxing at 15 with no support or no help from nobody. He tells us that when he started training us, that that he would get a lot of family members, uncles, cousins, that would tell him, man, come on, forget boxing, man. You ain't going nowhere. You don't know boxing. Just work and raise your family. But my dad kept in mind, in his mind, one day I'm gonna do something in boxing. One day, so that opportunity came, and my dad still he'll still say right now that that was his proudest moment to win a title with one of his sons. And for me, it was it was more like just another fight, like whatever. I didn't really feel like a champion when I won the title. It wasn't like I was there waiting for the announcer to say and new. It never hit me. It didn't hit me until my first title defense when I fought Ramon Ledon, who was a Cuban southpaw who dropped me in the second round, and then I got up, survived that round, and I knocked him out in the fifth round. That's when it kind of hit me, made me believe I was a real a world champion. That's really when I felt it. I not winning the title, but my first title defense.
I remember I was going to a gym regularly over there in the 90s, in the mid 90s, I want to say. It was a gym right there off of Pleasant Valley. You had a restaurant called La Cabanita de Grandpa,
Correct. Yeah.
right? And I remember after the gym, I would go get a burrito. Go figure. But I remember you'd be right there, taking orders. Was this before you were a world champion or after?
Yes, this was before. This was early in my career. My dad wanted to try something out. He was at that time he was still working in the strawberry fields, him and my mom. But my older brother, my sisters, they were the ones involved with the restaurant, and I was there. I already had my first kid, so I was ready with my wife, and she was there every day too. So it was more, just like family. It was a good experience. It was a lot of work every day, no days off, but it was a good experience. I think we were already getting a lot of attention from a lot of people that really liked the food. We were getting very very busy, but that's when all the big fights started happening. When I became champion, then Fernando Vargas became champion that same year, and everybody just became very busy. My dad, my brother, myself, training camps, Big Bear, Fernando Vargas, same thing. So it was hard to just leave my wife and my sister and my mom and the restaurant by themselves, and us, we were gone. So we had to sell the restaurant, but it was really good. We met a lot of people there that we still stay in touch with and became really good friends with from the restaurant.
Well, that's cool. And it also gave you, I'm sure, a good business sense for the future for like now.
Look, that's one thing that from there, and my dad not going to school and not doing much in school, but my dad always had in mind to save money and be smart with the money. Don't go out spending it like idiots. He would give a lot of advice to all the young fighters that were already looking with a bright future. Fernando Vargas, especially, my dad would give him advice. Buy properties. Invest your money in properties. I didn't go to school, so I cannot tell you do business or what kind of business to do. But the easiest thing for me to give you advice is buy properties, and that's one thing he always told us, always encouraged us, and he did. I'm doing now. Mikey's been doing. That's probably one of the best ways to put your money to work. Buying properties. Investing it in properties, because properties is there's always going to be somebody needing a place to live.
Yep, that is true. How did you get the name Grandpa, by the way?
I was like 12 years old, man. We used to travel to a lot of tournaments, and my dad tells us this story. I wasn't there when it happened, but my dad says that we came to a tournament, to an amateur show in LA, and all the local trainers from LA, they already knew who we were from Oxnard, who my dad was, who I was, and everything. So my dad says that we all came, signed up to weigh in and see if we could get a match, and that there was, I don't know who the coaches word, but my dad says that a couple coaches that they said, "Oh, here comes the killer," talking about me, the killer. So my dad asked me, the killer, who you talking about? Like, oh, your son, And my dad asked him, why do you guys call him the killer? And my dad didn't really like the word, the killer. So that they told him, oh no, don't feel disrespected. We just like the way he fights. He fights like a killer. And my dad said, well, you know what? I really don't like that word for my son. So don't call him that. So they told him, well, we only, we do it because we respect him. That's what my dad says, that they told him, we say that because we respect him. So my dad told him, okay, well, if you're gonna respect him like you respect your grandpa. So from there, every time we would go to the fights, those coaches and they started calling me grandpa, and that's how I got the name. From people that know me since I was an amateur, a lot of people still call me grandpa when we go to boxing. That's something all the new people in boxing, they don't know. But all the people that know me from years and when I was fighting amateur and professional, a lot of them still call me grandpa.
Yeah, what are you today? A grandpa.
Now I am a grandpa, 1 year old.
And a few fights, or a fight after Ramon Ledon, you fought John Molina, very tough Puerto Rican
Correct.
fighter.
Oh my
What do you
God.
remember about that fight?
One of my
I
toughest
talked
fights, man.
to Tony the Tiger Lopez, who fought him several times, and he told me the same thing. One of the toughest fights. What do you remember about that?
Look, that guy was, man. I connected him with everything. He also connected me. It was just one of those fighters that had so much experience. He knew how to use his head, his shoulders, his elbows. He was a tough guy, very experienced. I had a hard time. I pulled off the win, but it was a very tough fight. Until now, I think experience wise, I think he's been the toughest fighter I fought. And even though I won, and I lost three, against Chico Corrales, Mayor, Bantaki, I still think that John Molina was the toughest because he was just so experienced, man. All these other guys were younger. Molina was just so experienced, man. He had so many fights under his belt that he already knew how to fight. And fighting a young guy, for him it was I'm fighting a kid. But yeah, he was very tough,
Yeah,
very tough.
cagey veteran. Diego Corrales was your next fight, and everybody that knows Diego Corrales, now, but that's where he pretty much, became the world champion is after his fight with you. That's where he opened up everybody's eyes. What do you remember about that fight with Diego Corrales?
Look, it was another one of those, where I think I actually think I was doing really good up until the sixth round. He caught me with a punch and hurt me and dropped me. Then the seventh, early in the round, he got me with a punch, dropped me, and the ref waved it off, and I was hurt. Nothing to complain about. But uh, until now, I know he became a legend. He became a legend, and people loved his fight, especially the one against Castillo. So he became a legend. So to me, to all those people that don't know that I was even a world champion, when I bring it up and I say, look, honestly, I feel honored to say, hey, that's the man that took my title, Chico Corrales, and I gave him a hell of a fight. I believe I was ahead on the cards or
Yep,
something.
you were.
So I said, look, that's the guy that beat me to, that took my title. So from the fights that he had, the legend that he became, I have no shame to say that that's who I lost to.
Your next fight, I think I was mad at you for a few years after you lost to your next opponent because I thought you had it in the bag. Bantaki, what do you remember about that fight with Bantaki?
I think that was probably one of my best performances until the last
Yep.
round, and
Hmm.
I remember watching during the fight, thing that hardly ever happens, but I remember hearing the commentators, and I remember them talking really good about me,
Hmm.
when during the fight. So I don't really remember this, but my dad tells me that going into the last round, my dad told me the fight's yours. You looking great. You came back really good. So just move around, go through. Just go through the fight. It's yours already. But I cannot say it did happen. But if you ask my dad assures that that's what happened. He told me that at that time, the other person that was working the corner with my dad, that he said, no, don't do that. show them that you have balls and go out there and beat the shit out of this guy. So my dad thinks I listened to that and made that mistake. But I don't want to blame nobody. I think I got caught with a fucking hard punch, and Bantaki was a very strong guy, man.
Yeah.
One thing I remember is I was boxing, really good and landing punches and angles and moving around. Like I'm telling you, I think that was probably my best performance. But this guy just kept coming, and he would make a noise, a little noise, like he wasn't worried. It wasn't a noise like where he was hurting. It was a little noise like provoking me to keep doing it. Like he didn't care, like provoking me and kind of like giving me a sign like, here, you
He's
just
trying to
wait. I'm gonna
lure
get
you in. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Like I'm gonna get you, but it was a little noise that he was making with his mouth, and it was just getting to a point where I did get a little frustrated. I did. Maybe he's the one that it was in the corner. Maybe it was him that made me. All right, motherfucker, here I come.
Yeah.
And he caught me with that hook, and fuck that. That's all I can say. Fuck, it was, I believe, knockout of the year.
Yeah, and I remember like a lot of the talk afterwards with people from Oxnard, the locals. Everybody was like, "Man, he had it won. What happened?"
I
Like,
had it, yeah, I had it.
yeah. And I remember that was a talk. The next fight you
See,
went
but
with Sandro Marcos,
yeah,
and then after
yeah,
that, I remember we all went. I actually went with one of your first trainees, which was Arturo Barraza. We went over
correct.
to the Joel Casamayor fight in Vegas. I
Yeah,
remember seeing Adam Sandler and Rob Schneider there.
yeah, they were there.
What do you remember about that fight against Olympian Joel Casamayor?
See, for that one, I've said it a few times before. For that one, I wasn't there to try to become champion. And another one where I think I was doing good in the rounds, early rounds, but I didn't really care about the fight anymore. Like I had already lost the love for the sport. So, the name, the former champion, I guess, they're bringing Casamayor up, just won a title, so they're bringing him up. So they wanted to place him to fight him against the former world champion, which was me. When I got the offer, I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." Got a nice payday, so I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it." But I never really even trained to. I'm not saying I didn't train. I did train, but I didn't train with a mentality of winning another title. I didn't really care. I didn't really care after the fight. I had been stopped. I had been, dropped and stopped. I was more excited about taking a picture with Adam Sandler than losing the fight, losing a title fight. You know what I mean? That's the way I felt. It wasn't. I didn't care. I didn't care. I really didn't care. I was more excited about meeting Adam Sandler and Rob Schneider than the fight itself.
Well, having said that, and knowing that it was a fight before your last fight, were you already losing interest in the sport? Were you already like, man, fuck this sport. I want to go do something else? Or
Yeah, by then I had already lost the interest. I really didn't want to do it. I was doing it because that's the only thing I knew how to do, and the paydays were still decent. Where I wasn't gonna make that kind of money on a day job, so it was decent. Then my last fight came on a Fernando Vargas card, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but I've told many people during the fight. I thought to myself, and I wanted to walk out of the ring and just walk away and just give up the fight like that. But it was on a Fernando card. Fernando was a big name, so there was a lot of people from Oxnard, a lot of people supporting us.
yeah,
So I finished the fight. I stopped the guy, I believe, in the sixth round, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah.
But I didn't do it with passion. I didn't really. There was a point, like third round, where I was thinking to myself, like, what am I doing in here? Why am I fighting with this guy? Why am I punching this guy who I don't even know? And I felt like turning around and just walking out of the ring. That didn't happen. I finished the fight, but on the way to the locker room, everybody in the corner and friends, whatever, everybody is celebrating. We got the win, and next one, this and that. And I was just quiet, and I told everybody there won't be a next one. That was my last fight. I didn't tell anybody, but this is my last fight. I'm not gonna fight again, and it's gonna be 20 years already.
Yeah, I remember. I think in that last interview that we had, and we were talking about your training career and when you stopped your boxing career. I remember I asked you if you ever looked back. You know, like a lot of these fighters do after a year or two. They're like, man, I'll get back. Let me go back in there. And if you ever look back, you were like, no, I never look back. And
Never did, man. Look. At 26, a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I was still 29. There was a time when we stayed in touch with Gennaro Hernandez a lot. So I was 30, and Gennaro was 9 years older than me, so he was 39, and we would talk often. So we were on the phone call with each other, and he asked me, what are you doing? What have you been doing? I said, nah, I've just been staying home, just helping my dad out with the amateur program, some of the fighters. And he told me, Robert, why don't you get in shape and talk to Bob Arum? He'll give you a couple of wins and then get you a big fight against, at that time, Barrera, Morales, Pacquiao. They were all fighting at 130. And he told me, Gennaro told me, Robert, you're young, you can still get a really nice payday. And I told Gennaro, you look, Gennaro, I stopped boxing 4 years ago because I just got tired of it, and it's been 4 years, and I don't have no desire to do it again. I just don't like it. I just don't want to do it anymore. So he understood, he respected that, but he did give me that advice, Robert, come on, man. There's a lot of money right now with all those big fights, and I'm sure with a couple of wins they'll give you an opportunity. But I just didn't have the feeling for it. And man, it's next year. It's already going to be 20 years. I was 26. I'm 45 right now. So next year it's going to be 20 years, and never did I ever get the like the want to do it again. Not even spar. I sparred a couple of times, like I did with Brandon Rios one time, and then another day I sparred with a kid that was challenging everybody in the gym, and he was just being he was just being talking shit about Mexicans, and so I'm like, fuck it, let's
oh
spar.
wow,
But but I never, not because I really wanted it, just because he just got on my nerve, and I wanted
uh-huh.
to show him that I still had a little bit in me. So
Right,
so I
right.
sparred with him, but never have I ever look back and try to do it again, or why didn't I do it at 29, 30? Not at all. I think what I learned from my career, the mistakes that I made, the things that I learned from my dad, all that is helped me become what I am now as a trainer. All those experiences with promoters, with managers, in the fights, all that I bring it to the corner when I'm working a corner with my fighters. And my dad has told a lot of people, in the family and friends and boxing people, that in the corner, it's hard to have a better corner man than what we have with each other. Me, my dad, my son, the people that work, we work together. We know the fighters. I know how it feels when a fighter's already tired, and the fighter's going to say no. The fighter's always going to say no. I'm good, because that's just the fighter mentality. But I know in the eyes the way I was feeling when I was tired or I was hurt, but I would still say I'm good, because that's just the fighter's mentality. Now I get that. I already know that from my fighters. There's so many things that have helped me be a better trainer from my experiences in boxing.
Do you think your career is better teaching than it was as a fighter, or do you think it was equal, or what do you think about that?
I think 100% better as a trainer. Uh, Now the way my career went, and the way I see on my boxing career now, and now my career as a trainer, I enjoy what I'm doing, man. I love everything I do in boxing. I enjoy negotiating, talking to the promoters, sometimes even fighting with them, and working out purses, and my fighters are happy. I don't even have contracts with my fighters, but they're all happy. They all, if they don't feel comfortable and they want to leave, they're more than welcome to leave.
Oh, so it's all like
But
a handshake type deal?
that's my deals I have with all my fighters.
Wow.
None of them are under contract, because contracts are, they're meant to be broken anyways.
Right.
So why am I going to force a fighter to stay with me if he's not going to be happy?
Yeah,
There's no at
look
all.
what happened. I'm sure Mikey would have liked something like that, but
Exactly.
he went through a lot
Yeah,
to break
exactly.
away. You know.
Yeah, so my fighters are all happy. They like what I'm doing with the purses. They all they're all getting paid well. They all have good contracts, so they're happy. And if one day they think they could do better somewhere else, then they're more than welcome. They're more than welcome to move on. I'm never gonna fight with them to try to force them to stay with me. But all that keeps me doing a good job, doing the right thing for my fighters. Because knowing that I don't have a contract, that means I have to do a good job for their next fight. When my fighters, when my fighters are getting better and better purses every fight, and they get to a point where they're making really good money. Well, then that makes them happy. They know I'm doing my job. I'm not keeping them at their minimums every fight, or else they wouldn't be happy. They would move on. They would find somebody else that's going to do a better job. All that is something that I love. I don't have a problem with having to get into an argument with Top Rank or Golden Boy, or anybody. You know what I mean? Because that's just the way this business is. And this business is one that you have to fight for your fighter, or else they're gonna step on you, and they're gonna treat you like, they pretend to love you, but if you let them, they're gonna do whatever they want with you.
I actually have a lot more respect for you now, after you saying all that. And then just thinking about it while you were saying all that, I'm also saying, like guys like Arturo Barraza and Felipe Campa, who were your first two fighters, that, they're very still loyal to this day. And I think that says a lot about you and, you as a person overall. You guys still have that respect that after all these years, you guys
Yeah, with
they're still
Arturo
there.
Barraza, every time I talked to him yesterday. He's still, love him. He loves my family.
Right.
We always stay in touch. Felipe, my compadre, we kept a good relationship. It's just, that's the relationship I like to keep, with my fighters right now. Brandon Rios, Brandon Rios hasn't fought in a few years already. I talk to him mostly every day. He's my, he's my boy. He's like my little brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All my fighters that are, they all, one thing that they also appreciate is, I'm not that manager that's gonna cut their check, with 30% to me plus 10% to the trainer or anything like that.
Right.
I don't even need to tell you the percentage that I get from them, but it's it's a very small percentage compared to what every other manager and trainers take from the fighters. My fighters take home most of the purse, and most of them don't even have to pay me until they make a nice payday. Because I grew up in boxing. I grew up paying 30% to my manager and 10% to my trainer, which was 40%. And a lot of fighters do it. A lot of fighters have done it. A lot of fighters are still doing that, and it's legal. It's right. For the commission allows 30% for the manager. That's just the work of a manager. It is a lot of work, but since I did it, and since I had to pay 30%, I know how it feels. So I try to do the opposite. I don't take that much from my fighters, and mm, I don't need to tell you the percentage, but the fighters they're happy because they know most of the purchases goes to them.
Virgil Ortiz, man. What's going on with him? What?
Due to all this, coronavirus, well, his fight was canceled, and now we don't have a date because right now there's no dates, especially for bigger fights. I think it's going to be a little bit longer, maybe July, August. But before all that, as of right now, he's still, that doesn't change. He's man, prospect of the year last year. I
Easily.
think right now I think he's already not a prospect anymore. I think every time they talk about the top welterweights, I
Hmm.
think he's mentioned among the maybe the best 5 or 6 welterweights in the division. Because we also got to know that Manny Pacquiao's still up there,
Right.
Thurman, Spence, Porter, uh, Terence Crawford.
Right.
So Virgil still, I can't, those are all world champions. They're all former world champions that have made a lot of noise in boxing. So I can't say, oh, Virgil's better than all of them. I'd be
Right.
stupid to say that. But I know that he's up there with them, and I know that he could already compete with them. I know it's not the moment right now, and I'm not rushing it either. I don't want to make a mistake where I take my 22-year-old into those type of fights where even if he wins, he has to continue fighting those hard fights. Where he's only 22, so if we still hold him back 2 or 3 more years, there ain't nobody gonna pressure me to take a fight if I don't want to because he's still a kid.
Yeah.
So by 24, 25, he'll be ready for anybody at that division.
It's scary to think that he's just starting. You know what he's already done is nothing. He's just starting. So
No, this kid's unbelievable, man. And look, it all comes from his from his dad growing up. You know, the way I'm telling you, the way my dad was with me and Fernando. His dad is very strict with him. His dad has one thing in mind, and that's to make his son a world champion. And the son listens. The son does everything his dad tells him. You know, they're very very close with each other. The son. The dad has always had him in the gym in Dallas when they come to training camp here in Riverside. Well, it's to get ready for his fight, and yes, now I'm involved and this and that. But back home, that's always on the son. You know, making sure his son stays in shape and doesn't gain a lot of weight and all that, which is something that. At sometimes it could get a little tiring, but that's the only way. That's the only way to become a star. And the kid is going that direction, man. He has. Man, he's in his room playing music, man, playing the piano or reading a book. He's not out in the streets hanging out, with friends, girlfriend, none of that. He's focused on one thing, and that's to become the best in his division.
that's good. It's not something that you don't have to worry about.
Oh, not at all, man. With his kids, nothing to worry about.
What about your somebody closer to home to you, Mikey Garcia, your brother?
Being that he's my brother, I always, I always try to maybe not use his name because obviously he's my brother, so I have to say nothing but good things about him. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
don't want it. I don't want every time people talk to me about okay, so who's your best fighter, most talented, this that. I always say okay, besides my brother, because I don't, that's my brother, so I don't even want to
Of
count
course,
him
you're
in
gonna
the
have that
group.
bias for him. Of course.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
But look, Mike is a very smart fighter. He fights very smart. He's very cautious. He does enough to win. That's his mentality. He doesn't take unnecessary challenges or chances. He's very very smart. Uh, Going back to Rudy Hernandez, Mikey was like 16 years old, and we were in Maywood sparring, and at that time we still had Victor Ortiz. And as you know, Victor Ortiz was, flashy. He always caught the
Right.
attention.
Right.
He always took off his shirt,
Hmm.
muscles, and very very talented, very talented.
Right.
So in Maywood Gym, everybody would surround the ring while Victor was sparring because he was very talented. And without a shirt, he would catch everybody's attention. And Victor would finish sparring, would go to the bags, and people would walk away from the ring. Then my brother would go in the ring. Mikey would go in there to spar. And the only person watching my brother was Rudy Hernandez. And one day I went up to Rudy Hernandez and I sat right next to him and I told him, What do you see, Rudy? And he says, Look, Robert, I'm going to tell you, everybody comes to see Victor. Everybody has their eye on Victor. But he says, But believe me, Victor's not your guy. Rudy told me Victor's not your guy. Mike is your guy. I'm like, are you sure? Are you serious, man? Mike, he's only 16 and he never really wanted to be a boxer. He doesn't have the need, the hunger. So he says, look, Robert, watch him spar. He says, look, he's not flashy. He doesn't catch the attention. Nobody, look, everybody turn around and went somewhere else. They're not even looking at his sparring. He said, but I am. And look, he doesn't get hit. He hardly gets hit, and he lands whenever he wants. He doesn't just throw punches to throw punches. He throws only when he's going to land, and that's a fucking good fighter. And he told me that's your guy right there. That's going to be your best guy.
Yep.
And look at what 10, 15 years later,
Yeah.
Mike's my guy.
And that's his thing is he doesn't waste punches. He's right.
Yeah, he doesn't waste
And
punches,
and
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 that's
you
what Rudy told me.
you know what's funny is that I remember like we're talking about your career. Your very last fight, I went with Gonzo for that one too.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think he was on the undercard of Shibata
Yeah,
and
Fernando
Vargas.
Shibata. Yeah, yeah.
And I remember we were there in the stands, and I remember Arturo goes, He goes, you know what's crazy is that Mikey is going to be the best of them all. And, that was 2001.
Right. One. Yeah,
you know
2001.
so it's like, wow, and talking, even just talking to Mikey, I remember the first time I had him on, it was like 2012, I think. He had
Hmm.
just, I think, maybe had his first HBO showing, maybe,
Hmm.
if that.
Yeah.
And I remember he was like, nothing surprises me. I see a superstar, I'm calm. I'm like nothing, nothing bothers me. And as fights go, and you really think about it, you watch him in the ring, he's never thrown off at any moment. He's always calm,
Never.
keeps his
Yep.
composure, keeps his mind exactly where it needs to be. And like you said, never wastes punches. And, he's a hard ass puncher. So,
Yeah.
I mean, damn, I mean, that equals what he is today and,
Right.
his success. And I'm sure a lot of that was teachings of your experience and also
Yeah.
your father's, obviously. So I mean, that's what it equals, is it's success.
Exactly. That's just the way Mike is. We never really thought, when he started boxing, we never really thought he really wanted to become a world champion, making all those big fights and everything. And I don't think he even believed he wanted to do that either. But once he became champion and he started getting the attention, a lot of fighters, one of the most talented fighters, and started getting to the pound for pound. So he kind of felt like, man, you know what? I want to be up there. And then that's when he started getting that desire to, he talks about contracts right now. He says, look, I already accomplished 4 divisions. I'm pushing for the fifth, but even though if I don't get the fifth, I still want to be up there with the names of the guys, doing those contracts, like nowadays Canelo contract, Triple G contract. Mikey thinks, and aiming for stuff like that. He says, I want to be one of those guys that one of the best paid athletes in a year. And he said, and that, those are his goals. First it was, let's get the world title, let's become a 2 division. Now he's 4 division. But he always has those little things that we find it weird, because it's not like other fighters who love the sport and do it. Brandon Rios. Fuck. Let me give you this example. When Brandon Rios was going to fight the Cuban, what's his name? Oh man,
Gamboa.
Gamboa. Yeah,
Hmm.
never happened anyways. But
Right.
me and Cameron Duncan are working on his purse. Because we had already got a press conference and everything. The fight was already supposed to be a done deal, but we were working on his purse, and Top Brand was, offered us 600,000. So we told Brandon, look, they're offering us 600. Oh fuck yeah, that's badass. He had never made that money, so he was fucking happy, and he told us, let's go. Where's the contract? Let me sign it. So we told him, give us a couple weeks. We think we could do better. Nah, fuck that. Let me sign it right now. I know. What if they give it to somebody else? They're not gonna give it to nobody else. Let us do our job. So a couple of weeks we come back with 900,000. And check this out. I don't think you know this, but look, we come back to Brandon and we tell him, okay, Brandon, we got you $900,000 to fight Gamboa. You know what Brandon responded?
What's that?
Says, I don't give a fuck. Let's do it for 600. I'll just fight him for 600. He didn't. For him it wasn't about the money. It was about going out there and
I
and
believe it.
beating somebody up.
I believe it.
He fucking throws. I don't care. I don't want to fight him. I'll fight him for 600.
Wow.
He told us that, like, pretty much saying, it's not. He told.
Like,
I'll
throw away
fight
the
him.
other 300. It's all right.
You know what I mean? We said, oh, me and Cameron looked at each other and we're like, what the fuck's wrong with this kid? But see, that was the mentality Brandon had. Mikey is more about the business. Mikey is about the business, about getting making PBC and the zone, Eddie Hearn, negotiate and fight each other to give him the biggest payday. That's Mikey. Mikey does do that. Brandon wouldn't care. Brandon would want less money just to get in there and fight and beat somebody up.
What's going on with Brandon? Is he just totally retired, or I know he was kind of like trying to make a comeback, but I mean, is he totally out of it? And what do you advise for him to do?
Yeah, as of right now, he's totally retired, and we talk a lot. We were texting this morning. We always stay in touch. So as of right now, no plans of him coming back. Hopefully, he doesn't. I really don't. I wouldn't want to see him fight again. He's like my little brother, and he really did what he did. Brandon made a lot of money. He had a lot of great paydays. I think Cameron Duncan, myself, we did a great job with him. He got a huge payday against Pacquiao. His wife, very smart with the money, saved the money up and invested in some properties. So Brandon is good. He's not one that needs to fight again to pick up another payday. He doesn't have to. He started the gym in Oxnard with Jody, who they run a gym. Right now obviously it's closed because of the virus, but they opened up a gym once everything gets back. They're gonna they already had quite a few kids going to the gym, so that's what he's been doing. He still comes around once in a while, or when we go to Oxnard, we'll hang out. But he's spending time with his family, his kids, the gym there in Oxnard. But he's doing good. He doesn't talk about trying to make a comeback because he knows I'll tell him no. He knows I'm gonna tell him there's no way he's gonna do it again.
Do you got anybody new coming into your stable or into your gyms there that we should be aware about?
I have so many fighters that it's tough for me to mention some and not all,
Yeah.
or mention all of them because it's gonna take us
Yeah.
minutes just to finish the conversation. But
Right.
there's right now with a lot of young fighters that I signed with Golden Boy and Top Rank. They're already up there with 10-round fights. So sooner than later, we're gonna get that call for a big fight. The Hector Tanahara. I have him training because, man, he fights. He's under Golden Boy promotion. So is Ryan Garcia. They both fight at 135. So, you know, it's so easy for them to make that fight. And if I'm not asking for that fight because it's a dangerous fight. Ryan is a very fast, powerful kid, and
Right.
he's on top of the world right now. But I don't want them to surprise us and get us off guard. So I know that it's possible that they call me, "You're fighting Ryan Garcia," and I don't want to be off guard. So they're in that position right now. Tanajara, Franco's little brother, Bam Rodriguez. That kid, he's a 108 pounder, but that kid is fucking. He's one to keep an eye on. He's 10-0 and already got him ranked number 3 in the world. Before this virus, he fought on Mikey's card in Dallas,
Okay.
and his next fight was already scheduled to be for a world title. He's ranked number 3 in the world for the WBO and for the WBA. So we got options, but that kid could fight, man. That kid is special, and I think he could be 108, 112, 115, a 3 division champion, maybe even a 4 division. But this kid could really fight. His name is Jesse Rodriguez.
That's awesome. Are you thinking about opening another gym or something down the line as well?
It's hard, man. It's hard. It's really hard to do that. I've thought about Dallas, Texas, because that's where I have Virgil and a couple other guys in the Dallas area.
Texas is
That
just a hotbed of boxing.
Yeah, Texas is
I mean, look
insane,
what
bro.
they did
It's
for
awesome.
Mikey and even for
Yeah.
Fernando. Remember when he
Yep.
fought
No,
over
no.
there?
Dallas is one of the best places for me to take any of my fighters, man. They've given us nothing but love. Every time one of my fighters fight, people show up, man. People show up. They show us a lot of love in Texas.
Man, well, that's great. Actually, I read an article over the weekend about you. It was from 1993 when you were still a senior in high school, and it mentioned how through boxing you were hoping to take your parents off of the fields and for working there. And I think you were even quoted to have said something like, "It's gonna happen." And it's all these years later, man. And look at you now. And yeah, I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of everything you've done for your community, all the different communities that you have for the city of Oxnard. Every time we think of Oxnard, of course, the Garcia name comes up. And damn, man, I mean, you've taken over the world, it seems like, and from one Oxnarder to another. Congratulations for everything, and thank you again for coming on to the boxingbar.com. It meant a lot to me personally for having you on, a guy from my city. I'm no longer there either, so I
How,
feel
how
like
long
I
has it
feel
been?
I feel
How
at
long has it
home.
been since you moved?
I left in 2014. Now I live in Chico, California. I moved to the Central Valley for a short time,
Okay.
and now I
Yeah.
live all the way 2 hours past Sacramento. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
all the way the heck up here. So just to hear somebody from Oxnard, and just makes me feel at home, and I appreciate it, and thank you very much for coming on and giving us all your time. I thought it was going to be about 45 minutes, so I'm sorry for taking up all your time there, but I'm glad I got to know you a lot better, man.
Now I'm gonna have to deal with my wife now. She's looking at me already. Everything's cool now. That's cool.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's awesome, and anytime, I know it took a few years, but we could do this more often, man. It's awesome talking to you, and time flies when we talk about boxing.